I will send my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way. A voice of one calling in the wilderness. Prepare the way for the Lord.
The coming of Jesus, or the Advent, is not separate from the mission that we have as a church.
God calls us to go ye therefore and to preach the gospel. And it's interesting that he uses the term preach the gospel to the poor.
I think that the whole point of going into the world and going and being partners with the global church is to bring hope when we're dealing with really difficult things, when there's loneliness or brokenness. Christ brings hope to the world.
We live in a world that is filled with violence and a lack of purpose and a lot of depression and anxiety. And so there are so many people who've yet to experience that great hope and joy. And I can't be selfish. I can't keep that love and hope and joy and peace for myself, but I'm called to spread that to other people.
In my country, even right now, they are living tough situation with war. The message of hope is that Jesus, the hope of the world, is able to bring peace, is able to change the circumstances that they are living in, and the hope that he cares about them.
Consider your Christmas season personally. Are you inviting in or are you going out? As a church, are we wholly focused on inviting in, or are we focused on going out into the world who is out there trying to make it through another season?
And in Christmas time, when we put the breaking in of Jesus with the excitement and the anticipation of his coming, with the Great Commission, I believe that it gives us all a great courage to move forward into these spaces that some of us may be uncomfortable with. And that's where God has called and united us in our sense of service to one another.
The journey that began in the manger to the cross 2,000 years ago, it's resulted in uncountable chains being broken. And until this day, his power continues to do beautiful things. And he's invited us to take place in this beautiful timeline, to be part of his story. So Advent invites us to remember our call, remember our purpose. And when we get to that day, I want to stand firm, knowing that I've done all that God has called me to do.
Well, good morning once again. When I listened to that video this morning, I was like, ooh, I recognize that voice. And so one of my co-workers, Pastor Isaac Bujambi, who was just here in our building a few weeks ago. And so those are part of some of our Free Methodist family. And speaking of family, I'll go ahead and welcome Eve up. And so Eve surprised our family this week. I mean, we knew. But surprised the rest of the family and some of her friends just being able to come home before she leaves to go overseas next month, or actually this month, I guess, since today is the 1st. And so, you know, we this is my daughter, and we support her as a church, and so it gives us a chance on this first Sunday of Advent to hear from her, and fitting on this day of hope as she shares hope throughout the world. And so let's welcome Eve today, shall we?
Hi, guys. Okay, I was sitting there laughing. I wasn't going to say this, but have you guys ever been to like one of those youth groups and the guy comes up and he's like, "What's up, guys?" And then everyone else says like, "What's up, guys?" And maybe it's just me. I was like, can we do it? Not fun. Okay, what's up, guys? See, that's what I was thinking. I had it. I was like envisioning my high school years right there. Okay, anyways. If you guys don't know me, I'm Eve. My parents are the lead pastors of this church. I'm 24 years old, and I've been going here since it started. Also, I'm like kind of sick, so sorry, guys. But yeah, I've been like super passionate about just being in missions and being a missionary for honestly like as long as I can remember. I remember being like 10 years old and you'd be asked what you want to do when you grow up. And I just think like, well, I just want to move to Africa. And honestly, it's kind of been that way like ever since I was a kid. Yeah, so there's like a couple pictures in me. When I was 17, I went to Zambia, Africa for a whole summer. I really fell in love with like the country and its people, and in that time I just kind of realized what it looked like to have a mother's heart and what the Lord was really calling me into. Honestly, before I even realized it was like what God was calling me into. So yeah, I went when I was 17. There's like 4 pictures of the time that I was in Zambia. So we built soccer fields for the villages. We traveled and we did like tons of children's ministries. We hung out with the local street kids, and yeah, it was just like a big thing. And I was 17 and now I'm 24, so this was like kind of a while ago. But I think that over this last year, something that the Lord has really taught me is that the enemy is always going to attack you in what you probably feel called most to do. I used to just always think that I wasn't made to like be a mom. Not that I am a mom, but I used to always think that I like wasn't capable of like being a mom. And just over the last year, like the Lord really opened my eyes and had just a lot of people like speak into my life about like just motherhood and like kids and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like sharing that because I don't know if other people feel that way, but yeah. Okay. So after I graduated high school, I went to Zambia the summer before my senior year, and then I graduated high school, and I went to Bible college for 2 years, and I got my associates in biblical studies. And then fast forward a couple years up until last fall in 2023, I ended up attending an organization called YWAM, and it stands for Youth with a Mission. It's in Kona, Hawaii. It's like based there, and I did a discipleship training school, which stands for like DTS, if I say that. I spent 3 months in Kona. I was studying the gospel. I was learning just like what it meant to preach effectively, and yeah, just had like a bunch of new things. So yeah, when I was in DTS, they kind of say that you learn as much as you would in 7 years of church. So a lot of people that are going into DTS are like not Christian and are just very baby believers. So it's super cool to be able to learn that. So I ended up going on outreach to South Africa last year, and it's like the one place I just really felt called to go to. Even when I was like here last year, before I did DTS, I was like, I want to go to South Africa. And didn't even know it was going to be an option, ended up being an option. This is a picture of my team when we went to South Africa. We were able to travel the whole country in in the 3 months that we were there. So every week we would like get in the van and we'd travel for like 20 hours. I think there's 3 pictures. Yeah. Okay. So we did ministry that included door-to-door evangelism. That was like our main focus. So, like every day we probably did like 8 hours of door-to-door evangelism. And then we did work with local churches. We built a house for a family from the local church whose house had built down. We ministered to witch doctors. We did stuff with the homeless community. We evangelized to prostitutes and orphanages. We preached at churches, and then just like tons of other ministries as well while I was there. And some outreaches only do like one form of evangelism or one form of ministry. So it was super cool to like go on my first like big mission trip and be able to do so many different types of ministries, understand like what I was good at, what I liked, what maybe wasn't necessarily for me. But yeah, we saw 300 salvations in the 3 months that I was there, which was really crazy. And I just learned how to preach and evangelize effectively. When I was in South Africa, we had the opportunity to preach and just get to like do different types of things. And I ended up preaching at a youth group. I was like asked to preach at this youth group. And to put into context, I like went into this thinking that it was gonna be from the ages of like 14 to 18 like it is here in the US. But when I went to this youth group, we pulled up, and it was like from the ages of like 4 to the ages of like 40. And I had like prepared something for like the ages of like the teenage years. So I was kind of like stressing, and I was talking to the pastor and my contact, and I was just like, should I switch up my whole sermon? And my contact was like telling me that the people in this audience, even like the kids, had probably seen way more than I had ever seen in my whole life. And so I decided to keep the sermon. And I basically was preaching on like forgiveness and what it looked like to forgive, and how we can't forgive, or like we won't be forgiven unless like we forgive as well. Obviously there's grace, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I was preaching on forgiveness, times that I had forgiven. And at the end of my sermon, we had like my whole team of 8 came up on the front, and everyone that was in the audience, which was probably like 100 people, came up and had to like share with one of my team members or like a contact of like someone that they wanted to forgive, or like a situation they wanted to forgive, and like pray for it. So I was with my contact, and this little like 6-year-old girl comes up to us, and she's like speaking Afrikaans, and she comes up to me and my contact, and she's talking, and I can't understand her, but my contact's translating, so he's like saying what she's saying. So she basically says she wants to forgive her dad because her dad like abuses her every single night, like has for her whole life. And she's like crying, but you can tell she's trying to be like so tough, and she's like wiping all of her tears, things like that. And like so much stuff is going on in my mind. And the first thing I'm thinking of, like, I used to work at the daycare, so I know what it's like to like, I mean, I know that there's like CPS out there. I've never had to call CPS, but like I know that that's a thing. And so that's where my mind goes, is that where you have to call like CPS, something like that. So I'm talking to the pastor, and she's just like, girl, we don't have CPS. Like, I don't even know what that is. And so I'm just like, well, what happens? And basically she's just saying like, we just send her home. And so I like took a second to myself, and I walked outside, and I was like literally so emotional and crying, and I was just like, what the heck? Like, I was just honestly really distraught. And in that moment, I had a moment where I was like, God, I don't think I want to do this. Like, I've always wanted to do missions, and I just genuinely think that this is like way too hard, and I can like never hear a story like this ever again. And I feel like the Lord really met me in that moment, and he was just kind of saying like, Eve, like, I know this is hard, but like her just saying that out loud was probably the first time she'd ever even like vocalized it. And so like to be able to be in these kids' lives or in adults' lives and be able to be that one person that they're like, yeah, I want to forgive this person that way, that like I know the Lord and the Lord forgave me. And so I think in that moment, like I already knew I was marked for missions, but really that moment hit me. And I felt like, yeah, the Lord was just like, girl, you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. So yeah, after that, I continued my outreach, and I ended up coming back to YWAM as a DTS staff. And I knew that this is like, I'm just starting the beginning of a really long journey. Wait, you can stop the things. Sorry. So yeah, I came back as a staff, and I committed to 2 years. Right now, I am room staffing a room of 6 girls, and then I am leading an outreach team to Central Asia with my co-leader, John, and it's going to be like 6 students. I think if you go back, what happens if you go back? That's my team. Can you go back one more? Oh, yeah, okay, this is what we'll talk about. Okay, so yeah, my co and I are having like weekly meetings, and we get to meet with contacts in Central Asia, and we're preparing for 3 months. I'm going to like an unreached area, and I'm going to like a place where it's illegal, but it's super chill. And I promise it's chill. Like, yeah, it's chill. But yeah, when I came back, I always knew I wanted to go into missions, but I always felt like God was calling me into Africa. And I think that people who go to Africa are like absolutely amazing, and like I literally have it tattooed on my back. But when I came back, I felt like the Lord really wanted me to go to some place that was going to make my yes hard, and it was going to like like God was just really breaking me for like one person and one person to reach. And on this map, all of the red dots are all of the places that are unreached. And I think that this was taken in like 2019 or something like that. But only this is like a wild statistic, but only 3.4 missionaries of 100% go to unreached areas, which means 97% of like long-term missionaries go to places where the gospel has already been told. So, and where I'm going in Central Asia, it's like 6% reach or something like that. So I'm super excited. And yeah, I just felt like the Lord really wanted me to go to a place that was going to be hard. Oh wait, you can go one picture forward, I think. Oh wait, this is my team. They're awesome. There's 6 of us, and then me, my co is the one in the purple jacket. So we're leading the outreach. And then you can go to the next picture too. Oh wait, I think there's this one. So my co and I, over the summer, when we were, when it was like just staff, we started leading a Central Asia prayer set. And every week we just got together and we would pray for Central Asia. And then the next picture, this is some of my team. So we continued the prayer set, and every single week I like, part of my job is to like create a band and then create like a prayer set list. And I get to like help my students who have like probably, never led a prayer set. This is my student Jaden, so he's like helping us lead the prayer set, which is so cool. But yeah, in Central Asia, we're going to be doing one-on-one evangelism. So it's very much more like one-on-one ministry. So I'll probably, for example, like meet one girl and then meet with her for like the rest of the 3 months that I'm there, or like meet 2 girls, or stuff like that. Where like when I was in South Africa, I'd meet one person, they'd like give their life to Jesus, and then I'd never see them again. So yeah, we're going to be doing one-on-one evangelism. We're going to be doing a lot of English clubs. They speak Russian there, so a big form is to like help them speak English, and then we can share the gospel that way as well. We'll be doing Bible studies with them, working with home churches, and then a bunch of other types of ministries. So yeah, since the gospel, I'm going to 2 different nations in Central Asia, countries, and since it's like illegal, it's just very friendship based. But yeah, like I said, it's like super safe and chill. There's like, we meet with our contacts every single week, and they've lived there for 3 years. So super fun. And then the last form of ministry we're going to be doing is homeless ministry, and then we're working with church camps and then small groups. So after I came home from DTS last year, God really just like opened my eyes to Evansville. I grew up here, and like this is my hometown. My family lives here. I went to high school here. And he just kind of started to remind me that there's lost people everywhere, like even right where we are. And like I think of people who I went to high school with, people who I grew up with that I knew for like, you know these people for like 15 years. You're in high school, you're in middle school, elementary school, and then it's like you graduate high school and you never see them again. So it's so crazy. But yeah, when I was here over the summer, I felt like the Lord was asking me to host kind of like a worship and prayer night. A lot of you guys went. And if I was here like long term, I would love to do that like every single week. But there's people in the room that ended up getting like marked for missions, and 3 of them applied for DTS, and 1 of them is doing it in Nashville right now, which is so cool. And yeah, so one sec, sorry guys. Oh yeah, I wanted to share one more story. This is like kind of random. Should have shared this earlier, but my bad. So a few weeks ago, I was in class. I'm sure some of you guys like saw it online, but there was someone that's like a teacher there full time, and he was teaching on just like what it looks like to be an evangelist, and like what God has like actually called us into as missionaries. And he started sharing this story about how, so like for context, this guy was like only became a believer when he was like 25, and now he's like 30, and he was like a drug addict and like just got into some crazy things. So all of his like hometown friends are still like that. So he was sharing about one of his best friends who he had like not really tried to share the gospel with because he felt like he was like almost like too lost. You know how you like feel that way sometimes, where you're just like, well, I'm not going to try and share the gospel with that person because they don't live it out. Well, he starts sharing about his friend, and his friend ended up passing away on an overdose. So it was like something that he's lived with regrets for like the past 5 years. And so he's sharing about this story, and he's like, I literally think about this every single day. Like, I should have shared the gospel with him. It was the enemy that attacked me. Like, I know I should have shared the gospel with this man who was my best friend. And then he starts talking about how that story and like that thing that happened to him is how God feels about like hundreds of nations. Does that make sense? Like, it's like the way that he felt about his one friend who like probably died going to hell is how God feels about these hundreds of other nations who have like never even had the chance to hear the gospel. And so in that, like, the whole room is getting met. I remember like they were calling staff to like go up and pray for people, and I'm sitting there weeping, and I'm like, is that me? Like, I'm crying. And so we end up like praying, and just like the Holy Spirit just kind of breaks out. So that was like on a Friday at 10 a.m. and then it ended up being an 80-hour prayer set. So it was like people just never left. So we were there all weekend. This was like 2 weeks ago. And it was like one of the craziest things I'd ever experienced. So yeah, I wanted to challenge you guys that the way that we share, I fully understand that the way that we share the gospel in like Central Asia, and like the way that I share gospel in Africa, and even like in Hawaii, is different than where we share the gospel like here in Evansville and like the people that you're with. So I've lived seasons in Evansville, so I totally understand that it's like it can be difficult. But yeah, I just thought if we all like close our eyes for a second, and we all just like genuinely had a second and thought like, okay, who's someone in my life that I've thought like is maybe too far gone? Or who's someone in my life that like I've like maybe like prayed for, but I've never actually like shared the love of Jesus with them, like actually verbally said like, hey, you know, there's like someone out there that loves you? Because I understand that there's a way of like in which showing it kindly and like not actually saying, you know, do you know Jesus? But there are people in your life that don't know Jesus that you've maybe not shared the gospel with. So yeah, if we all just like take 30 seconds and just think of one person. Okay, so, sorry. I was thinking that now we can share with like maybe the person next to you or someone that, you know, you're like close with, and you guys can hold each other accountable to share the gospel with them. You guys can pray with them like for each other for the next couple of weeks. Yeah. And maybe even pray for them right now. Okay, so my main thing that I wanted maybe you guys to get out from today is that I've lived in Evansville, and I've even taken like seasons here where I've lived here for like 6 or 3 months, and there's people who I saw every single day, like some of my family, some of my, not my immediate family, but like some of my just friends that I saw every single day, coworkers, people I just literally saw every single day. And even being like a missionary, I'd be like, well, you know, they know I'm a Christian and they never ask me about it, so like they're probably not interested. Or I'll like think things like that. And then it's like so much, like it's so much easier for me to go to like Africa and share with like 100 people that I've never will see again than it ever would be to like sit in Evansville and share the gospel with the same person I see every single day. So like I totally feel you guys if this is like something that's nerve-wracking, but I really challenge you guys that in this next week, even if it's like taking intentional time to like pray for them every single morning, and then like I bet you if you start praying for them for like 2 months, they're probably going to say something. Like God doesn't just like not hear us. So it's like if they say like, hey, so I know you're a Christian, you know, what's this about? Like just have like actual intentional conversations with them. So yeah, that is, oh, I'm going to pray. Yeah, Lord, we just thank you so much for who you are and what you're doing in this season and what you're doing in my life, the way that you've met the people in Africa, the way that you've met the people in Central Asia, and you're continuing to meet them, God. But we just thank you for Evansville, God. We thank you for the platform that you have here, God. We thank you that there's different organizations to get involved with, all different churches, God. We just thank you for the way that of what you're doing right here, God. We just pray that our friends who don't know Jesus, God, our friends that have denied Jesus here, Lord, that they'll just come and they'll come to us. They'll have questions for us, God. They'll just be able to meet us and meet you in a new and intentional way, Lord. We just thank you, God. We thank you for the fellowship. We thank you for the friendship here, God. And we just bless this day.